Do you have autism? If you have autism, you already know what your personal answer about Switzerland is. We're going to be taking a look at a bunch of different countries and ranking them from S all the way down to F for France. Number 1 is the United States of America.
For me personally, it's going to be an S ranking. There's a reason that every other country copies US designs or US surplus. There's a reason everyone's moving to multicam. What is the most prolific woodland cam of all time? It's the M81 woodland pattern that everybody else bases it off of.
I do agree with most of that, with it being S tier. We had like almost an entire year where we were just selling like US surplus almost exclusively. A lot of the like surplus stores in the US like started just selling US surplus, and now we're kind of seeing the shift from like, you know, US to like European stuff, because, you know, the European stuff, there's a lot of it to go around still. You know, we're just barely scraping the surface.
Also, marine surplus smells really pungent.
Pungent, yeah.
Maybe that's why it's S for stinky.
That's right, S for stinky. That's right, okay. Moving on, we have France. Oh.
Let me do my rationale first before I get into the rating. There are some garments that I think are really cool, for example, like the French pullover sweater, but in terms of like the field shirts or field pants, for example, like the F2 CCC or CCE pants, they're pretty decent. The sizing is weird to get used to for an American, right? Overall, I would say it's definitely above average. I would give this one a B.
France's woodland? I think it's a pretty decent take on woodland camo. See, the thing I hate about France most of all is the fact that we don't get FAMASas here in the United States. What's up with that? Give me a FAMAS, I want one. I don't have the heart to really put it in C. I honestly think I'm gonna have to agree with you again. It's probably a B tier. It's above average. I think that's a very good way of putting it.
Yeah, and I mean, not to forget, there are bangers there, right? The pullover sweater,
yeah.
The wet weather gear, especially the parkas and the pants, for what they are like really cheap and pretty decent.
Yeah.
For example, we should get them for sale here, but anyway.
The next one we're gonna look at is Turkey. Wow, that's an interesting.
An oddball.
That is definitely an oddball. What have we sold so far that's from Turkey?
We have some of their newer stuff incoming, but Turkey, Greece, and Portugal all have their own version of lizard camo.
That's right. Honestly, just because I've had so little experience with it, it's just kind of weird. I'm probably gonna have to give it like a D. I mean, I've seen it on other surplus sites too.
I would probably agree with D, just because we don't have as much of it and don't see as much of it.
Yeah, that's a D. Okay. Soviet Union. So that's obviously Russia and all of the satellite states that it that it convinced to switch to communism.
I would give this one a solid C. And the only reason it's C and not D or F is because it's cool, right? The doctrine and how they treat their gear is just like, it's way different than the West, right?
Yeah.
Just in our experience with how it's sized, the condition it comes in, it's below average, but again, the cool factor, right, brings it up to at least being a C. That'd be my take.
Okay, interesting. The novelty and the cool factor is absolutely there. I mean, for crying out loud, we make Gorkas, we make a Smersh. We love that stuff. It's just, it's so difficult to find in reasonable quantities, I should specify.
The original Gorkas are like potato suits, right? And
That's
the whole reason
sacks.
that there was the whole years-long journey of trying to remake it to be actually usable.
Yeah, we had to do a major redesign on the Gorka just to make it usable. I'm gonna have to say definitely a C. The next one we're gonna be looking at is Czechia, or the Czech Republic, or whatever they decide to call themselves today, because they can't decide on a name. Just pick one. Just pick one.
I would probably, and this might be a wrong take, but I might even give this one a D. It's mediocre to like kind of not as good, right? Some of their newer stuff is cool, like they do combat shirts now. That's cool, but it is pretty expensive, right? It's kind of the cost of what you'd get a US combat shirt for, and at that price, you're like, you really have to be in love with Czech VZ95 to justify that.
I like how VZ95 in particular looks. That's the vast majority of what's on the surplus market. I think VZ95 only works in like really deep wooded environments.
It's very specific.
It's pretty specific.
I mean, it makes sense for them.
It does. It does. So with Soviet Union at sea, I kind of want to give the Czechians a little bit of a break. Could you agree on a C for Czechia?
I would do C. Let's do
C for Czechia it is.
Next up, we have Switzerland.
Switzerland. Do you have autism? If you have autism, you already know what your personal answer about Switzerland is. Oh boy, is it an acquired taste. You know, when you look at Alpenflage, that is a crazy pattern. It is probably one of the wildest camo patterns out there. It's kind of scary that it works in the right environment. You could tell just by looking at their gear, it's a lot of what if questions. The stuff that we receive, because they haven't been invaded, is like pristine sometimes. There's an Alpenflage parka that we have in our archive that's like new. I'm bold here. I want to give it an A. I actually want to give it an A. I'm crazy. A for autism, right? There's really something to this stuff. It's just that the camo is an acquired taste. But as soon as you get it, you're gonna have a closet full of it. That's just how it works.
Yeah. They do a lot of weird ideas that are honestly really cool. Again, the Swiss parka was meant to be a replacement for load-bearing vests, which is wild because that like never happens.
No.
Ever.
No.
Right? And for that alone, and also for the price it's still available for what you get, it's really good. And I mean, even nowadays, even if they don't have Alpenflage, they are staying against multicam to the point where they will have multicam colors, but with the Alpenflage pattern, which is like, that's insane, right?
That's right.
So,
I forgot they did that. They can't let it go.
I agree. I'll give this one an A, just because like it is that cool. Next up, we have Oman.
Where is Oman?
Oman is near Saudi Arabia.
That's right.
When people think of this, they generally think of Omani DPM, right? The orange, strange-looking DPM. Very cool pattern, right? I would give this one solidly a D. Why a D? Because the camo is cool. The garments themselves are really unremarkable. The cut's bad. We've had them before, and it's just kind of mid. Especially the pants are awful. They decided to go with about 20 sizes, and most of it doesn't make sense. I'm giving this one a D, and the only saving grace is the pattern is pretty cool.
The pattern is like something that you would see is like a really shoehorned in late DLC to a Call of Duty game where it's like sponsored by Fanta.
Playtime is over when Nikki drops in.
It looks so wrong. I've seen it where it's supposed to work, and I'm like, there's no way that they thought this was a good idea. They just said, I'll make it orange. Yeah, I'm feeling a D.
Okay.
All right, next up we have Austria, which is an S. And I'll tell you why. If you've been on our mailing list for any period of time at all, you'll know how much we love this stuff. Even if you're not like a collector, get some Austrian stuff. It will change your life. It's different in the same way that Swiss stuff is different, where you could tell, okay, they were taking notes off of a couple different countries, and they kind of came up with their own thing that's really cool.
Yeah, Austria is a solid S. It is, again, it has the weirdness of the Swiss, but it's very accessible. Just like every piece they don't miss, especially with the new stuff. The paratrooper boots, the ranger boots, the delta boots, like all of those are genuinely fantastic surplus boots. Like if there's any surplus boot you should buy, it's probably one of those three, and you can just call it good there.
Yep.
Especially the waterproof stuff, right? The Austrian Alpine hardshell and the hardshell pants are like a fantastic budget piece. I can't think of a country that has cooler, more accessible surplus than Austria.
Yeah, because sometimes, I mean, you know, you don't even want to wear camo sometimes. Like some people just don't like it.
Exactly.
Austria stuff, all just flat green. It goes with everything. Even from a fashion perspective, they're fantastic. I mean, that's our paratrooper boots sold like crazy to fashion people for like the longest time. It's truly remarkable how far you can take this stuff. So, like we said, easy S. We don't even have to discuss this.
Next up, we got East German, or DDR surplus. Don't kill me here. It is a little bit like the Soviet Union. I wonder why. It has cool camos, but the sizing and the garments is kind of mid. The garments themselves are kind of mid. Strictarn is like undeniably a fantastic camo, which somehow still holds up really well today. Anywhere where there's dead grass or tall dead grass or like bush, anything like that, it's still pretty good. I'm gonna probably do C, and again, it's just like the pedigree of the camo is really making it float here.
I'm gonna have to agree, it's a C. You know what, actually, let me think about this for a second. So, we have probably sold more, like collectively, East German stuff than almost anything else in our catalog. Especially the little combat packs, which are just phenomenal little things. It's undeniably Soviet in the fact that you can tell it was just produced by the millions, like thrown out of the back of the factory. Is very hastily made.
The only reason I think it might jump to a B is because I do think it is better than Soviet Union stuff.
True.
And also things like the Easterman belts, so classic.
Yeah, they're
and it's not
classic.
because they're like complex or do anything amazing. It's just a belt that works and like is cheap and
it's thick.
and is cool.
It's thick.
So really debating doing B on this one.
You know what? Because it's ahead of the Soviet Union, I'm gonna have to agree with you. Put it in B.
Sweet.
Put it in B. South Africa. Now, this is another one where if you've been with us for any period of time, you know how much of our catalog has either been South African stuff or inspired by South African stuff. I mean, P84 exists because we loved the Pattern 83 system from South Africa. So the webbing, the battle jacket, the chest rig, they're all classics. It's phenomenal. And of course, the elephant in the room, Nutria Brown. What a cool color. I personally want to put it in A tier. It's got great history, but it's an A, it's not an S. What do you think?
I'll agree it's an A tier, especially kind of like for Switzerland where it's the ideas that really push it forward. Like Pattern 83 revolutionized kit as we know it.
Yeah.
For how you carry magazines, how you carry things around basically. I agree, I think A is a pretty safe spot for South Africa.
Okay, A it is. A for Africa.
All right, next up we have Great Britain. Tentatively, to me, this is probably an A. DPM is fantastic. It can still be had for extremely cheap. The sizing still is pretty good. The fit is very generous on pretty much all their pieces. I would almost even put this at S. I mean, it's the UK. They know about war. They know how to make stuff for war. Their kit is also fantastic. They were the ones, along with the US, to kind of pioneer belt kit.
Ooh, okay.
So,
what do I think about this? So DPM, iconic. It's a beautiful camo. And it's everywhere as well. I don't know if it's an S tier. And let me explain. They are stuck in their ways in some of their stuff. The PLC e-webbing is, if you squint at it hard enough, if you really, really look at it, you're like, wait a second, this is just their same stuff. I forget what the name of it is, from like the 1950s.
Pattern 58.
Pattern 58. They've been hanging on to that thing, and then you look at their field shirts and you're like, wait a minute, that hasn't changed since the 40s. And the more you look around, the more you realize, oh my God, they haven't changed any of their gear at all, ever. Why? I don't want to let it into S tier personally. As much as I love our friends at Arctis. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I can't do it. I can't possibly bring myself to do it as an American.
when I think about the league that the USA and Austrian surplus is in, I think A is a pretty safe bet. For surplus in particular of like, is it cheap and is it good for being cheap? Yes, 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 yes.
He made some valid points, right? The value is there, right? It's still pretty good stuff if you like the belt kit. I just think they need to innovate a little more, and they need to stop copying us, because MTP, Multicam, come on. You copied our homework. Admit it. Okay, and the Netherlands. And this is actually pretty well timed, because you know what the Netherlands does? Is they copied the British, and they make their stuff a little bit better, I've noticed. The Netherlands, they're tiny. It's a tiny little country. And somehow whenever we get stuff from them, I just keep going, I mean, I'm just shocked. I like the Netherlands flavor of DPM actually a little bit better. The Netherlands is just this big melting pot of taking your neighbors' ideas, but actually making them really, really good. You know, so in the Dutch DPM stuff, that we've sold is all fantastic. You know, your combat shirts, your field shirts.
It's definitely a solid A. If there was an A+ ranking or an S- ranking,
Yeah.
I would give it to the Dutch.
Yeah.
Again, their backpacks, especially for example the Dutch Sting pack, even the landmark bag isn't bad at all by any means. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think this is a solid A.
Okay, solid A. All right.
Next up, we have Australia, the land down under. We don't have as much experience with Australian stuff because it is still kind of rare, especially on this side of the hemisphere of the entire world.
Yeah.
But everybody knows Auscam,
Yeah.
DCPU, I believe.
Yeah.
Everybody knows about it. It is really cool. I'm really tempted to give it a B because it is just that cool, and also because I think they should stick with that and not multicam. What can you say?
Auscam is really cool and also kind of funny if you know where to look on it. We haven't had too much contact with it, but when we have, it's been extremely cool. We had Crossfire, these giant backpacks at one point in time, and they were fantastic. I'm also probably going to say B tier simply because it's a cool camo. It's hard to find some of their stuff, and the value just isn't as good as some of the other stuff on this list.
It's solidly above like C tier, Soviet Union and Czech stuff. We've had the pants and the field shirts. The cut on them is really good.
I can agree with that. B tier it is. All right, and now we are on to Germany, which is also probably just going to be another easy S tier. My first introduction to surplus was German Flecktarn, and I think there's a lot of people in our audience who can say the exact same thing. It was the first thing I bought from Kommando stores. What immediately got me hooked as a customer so hard that I ended up working here. The fit is fantastic. Flecktarn is a rare camo that is actually like kind of like fashionable, dare I say, just a little bit.
I'll also have to give this one an S. It's just classic. It's still pretty cheap, even though it's getting more scarce.
Yeah.
The most police surplus we see is German police stuff, which is fantastic. Modular Scotchlight parkas,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
summer blouse and jacket, like they're just bangers.
Yeah.
And the sizing system is very strange and autistic, but in a way that makes it fit better for you when you understand it. When you take the time to actually size yourself, it works really well. Belgian surplus. For this one, I'm feeling a strong B tier. It's pretty good. Everybody loves Jigsaw. It's a very strange and kind of quirky camo. The field shirts / kind of jackets, because they're a little heavier than field shirts. The 120-liter Jigsaw packs, like it's all solid. It's just that you have to love Jigsaw.
It's always funny seeing the photos of the guys with Jigsaw stuff, but holding just the craziest FN weapons you could think of, you know, the Scar and then the F2000. Just crazy loadouts, but like in the coolest way possible. Yeah, I get it. I think Jigsaw is a really provocative pattern. You know, it gets you asked a lot of questions. Which is like, what the hell are you wearing? But like in a good way. You know, it's kind of like Flecktarn, right? The thing I can't get over personally, it's hard to match it with any other part of like your normie wardrobe if you wear that sort of thing.
Or normal camos.
Yeah, or normal camos. You're never gonna have any luck matching this with normal camos. So I could never put it in S tier, never put it in A tier, but because of the quality, I'm gonna put it in B tier as well. That's a B. Now we're getting real weird. We have Greece. This is just one of those countries who we haven't gotten too much stuff. But the one thing, there's going to be one guy in the comments who is very passionate about it, is the Greek lizard camo, which is this weird kind of like, if you took Tiger Stripe and then you like zoomed it out of it in Photoshop and then you darkened it too much. It's real weird. It's an acquired taste. It's hard to find it as well, I think. It's such a strange one, but like not in a good way, like Switzerland or even Czechia. It's just downright weird. I kind of want to give it a D tier.
I'm going to be provocative here, and I'm going to give this an F, because the garments and the sizing are really just like uninspired and just kind of like, hey, we need a field shirt. Okay, here you go. It's just like, it's not mediocre, it's just like lackluster. And lizard camo on itself is like, it's kind of cool, but is it as cool as like Omani DPM? Or nah, not really. They need to do better. What can I say? I'm gonna give this an F.
Ooh, scathing. Oh, yeah. Do I really want to put them in F tier? I don't know. I think if this in F tier to me is like putting Turkey in F tier as well.
I'd put Turkey in F tier now too.
Oh, he's just gonna move it. We're gonna make our first. We're just gonna move them both to F tier.
Yep. They can both be the worst.
Greece and Turkey can both be the worst, at least for now. I'm sure we've got another stinker coming up.
Yeah. For Turkey in particular, I'm very much going to change my opinion when we see some of their newer stuff, because it does look promising. Next up, we have Poland. I am feeling a solid B. Me personally, I love the camos. Like, it's fantastic, and especially their newer stuff is getting really good really fast, and they surplus their stuff a lot, so you can get stuff made in like the last decade, and it's not gonna break the bank. I think it could even become A tier eventually here. So for right now, I'm feeling a solid B.
Some of the first surplus that I bought was actually Polish surplus. I love the colors. Their aesthetic has just always been on point. I love how it looks above most other things about it, honestly. You know, the build quality is good and the value is good, but I would say like a B+. I love it. I think it's really cool.
We got a good one here.
Oh, Rhodesia.
We say Zimbabwe now, don't we?
I'm dancing around the political implications of it right now. Please don't come after me. My problem is Rhodesian surplus is like impossible to find. It's a country that, for all intents and purposes, doesn't exist anymore. And maybe that's probably the most politically spicy thing to say yet. But for all intents and purposes, that country does not exist anymore. So you can't just go out and buy Rhodesian surplus, even if you really like it. You have to really get new production stuff, which is why we started to make new production stuff with Johann Neumoller. With all the history in mind and none of the political implications, I want to put it at B tier.
Brushstroke carries Rhodesia. One interesting thing that's surplus but kind of not surplus is the Batatakis. The hockey sneakers are made in Zimbabwe.
Oh,
not Rhodesia, Zimbabwe. So again, it's kind of surplus, not really.
Yeah.
I'll put it in B because, again, the camo is that prolific. For example, I think it got 3rd in U.S. military testing because it was that effective as a camo.
Yeah, we almost adopted it. That's right. I totally forgot about that. There was not specifically Rhodesian brushstroke, but I believe it was one called All Over Brush was the design that we were using. And it was super effective. And then UCP killed it, which is the biggest disappointment ever. B tier. B tier.
Romania, this is an F. Like, I'm sorry, it's just for surplus in particular, it's bad. It's really just not mediocre. Like, well, not even mediocre, it's just bad. So.
Was this the one where we sold, it's the M94 field shirt. We actually sold it once upon a time. And the pockets on the shirt are fake. They're fake, like the little buttonable, they're not real. They're not pockets. They're just there for looks. They're sewn shut. Yeah, I'm with you. It's an easy F tier, but like do better. And the camo's just ugly.
There's a reason that they're adopting DPM, or they did adopt DPM.
Yeah, that's right. They did, didn't they?
You could say someone stole the pockets.
Looks like we are done ranking surplus. If you absolutely vehemently disagree with us, please let us know in the comments and make fun of us. But for now, thank you for watching.